Good morning, family, friends, followers, and subscribers. Thank you for each of those things, and thank you for dropping in for a quick visit. Title of this is selling shit to Eskimos. So we'll start out with one of my favorite nieces, Ginger, made a comment on Facebook, and the substance of that comment was really straightforward. I don't know if she is serious. I thought about calling her and ask. But anyway, get to the heart of it. She said she had never tried a McRib sandwich, and she heard they were back, and implied that she's thinking about trying one. Good enough. That caused me to thinking about McDonald's, and I was in the hospital last week, or maybe, I don't know, 2 weeks ago, whenever it was. Time has a way of just kind of merging together. But I was in the hospital. My wife brought me in a McDonald's chicken sandwich. And the bread was so dry, it actually cracked. I think they got it out of last week's tray or something like that. The fish on it was about that big, and it was about that thick. I remember when I was younger, and I remember the cheese covered all of the fish, and slowly they cut it back, and they've made the fish smaller, and they've made it thinner. And now they're not putting as much of the tartar sauce on it. Incrementally, just a tiny bit, they keep jerking it back. And even though it was at one time one of my very favorite sandwiches, that's no longer true. That made me think about McDonald's in a different light. And here, a couple, 3 years ago, they had the big deal about pink slime. I looked it up and I found out what it was, and it's everything from the cow except for the hair and the hide. And sometimes a little bit of that gets thrown in too. And what they do with all of it is they tear it down with chemicals and then rebuild it up and reconstitute it. That makes it a whole lot cheaper. Not just McDonald's, but several of the fast foods were using it. And it was found it was not good for you. It was anything but good for you. So McDonald's withdrew their contract. There was, I think it was 5 or 6 major places in the world that was making that. 3 of them in South America, 1 here in the United States, and 1 in Europe somewhere. Wherever it was, though, that's the idea. I don't know at this late date how accurate that is with respect to my memory. But anyway, when McDonald's withdrew their support and quit buying that kind of stuff, and that's a presumption on our part, several of those places went out of business. There was only 1 left, but they're still making it. They're still selling it. I thought I'd quit eating at McDonald's. I thought, well, I'll go back. I can remember when I was in college, a hamburger eating contest, 6 of us sitting around the table on 25-cent night. And on 25-cent night, you get a hamburger and fries for 25 cents. And for an extra dime, you got a drink. And I remember the contest was who could eat the hamburger in the fewest bites. And I ate a whole hamburger with 1 bite. Thought I was going to choke to death, but I did it. Anyway, so much for a bird walk on this subject matter. So, thinking about that, I was wondering about the McRib. And my wife, who passed, Linda, loved the McRib sandwich and the taste of it. And that made me think of a friend of mine who is a food engineer. His job is with ice cream. And what he does is he designs and tests ice creams, use focus groups, all different kinds of stuff, to create new ice creams and to make existing ice creams taste better for one of the major ice cream producers in the United States. Taste better. And that made me think about McDonald's again and their hamburgers and the pink slime. So after they were done and had announced, that they weren't using pink slime anymore and they quit those contracts, it was about a year later, a year and a half later, I wanted to take the grandkids to McDonald's. And I wasn't about to do it. And I thought, well, they said they're not doing it. So I went in and I asked the person you take the orders from, I said, before I order hamburgers, I got my grandkids out there in the car. Before I order hamburgers, are you still using pink slime products? It was obvious she knew what I meant. And she said, we only use, how'd she put that? Oh, our hamburgers are all beef. Well, you take the entrails, the tongue, the eyeballs, the ears. I mean, it's all beef. That's what they were making pink slime out of, tearing everything down and then reconstituting it. I said, okay, but are you still using the pink slime products? She said, just a minute. And she got a supervisor to come over, and the supervisor said, yes, may I help you? And I said, yeah. I said, is McDonald's still using pink slime products? She said, our products are 100% beef. And I said, but being 100% beef, so is the pink slime, the way you guys advertised it and sold it. Are you still using it? And she said the exact same thing that the counter person said. We use 100% beef. I said, so do you chemically treat that beef in any way? And she looked at me, she said, just a minute. She left. And this particular store had a woman manager, the actual manager who was there. And she came out and she said with a real serious face, may I help you? And I said, I hope so. I have some grandkids in the car. And I want to buy a hamburger, but I want a direct answer to the question I've been asking. And so far I haven't been able to get one. And she just stood there and looked at me, face real solemn. I said, does McDonald's still make hamburger reconstituted out of pink slime? McDonald's hamburgers are 100% beef. Okay. So of course I didn't order any. So that takes me back to my friend who's the engineer. He reminded me of something my father had told me when I was younger. And I had bought, with my own money I might add, I bought a toy, and it broke right away. And I went and I complained. I said, Dad, this wasn't very good. Blah, 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 blah. I whined. And he said, well, they sold it to you because their business is making money selling those toys. I said, well, why would they sell a product like that? He said, it's all about money. And he goes like this. He goes, it's all about money. He said, they don't care about you. They don't care about that toy. He said, if a salesman could sell shit to an Eskimo, calling it ice cream, he'd do it. He goes, and there's a way to do it. He says, if you put enough sugar on it, they'll like it. And that got me to thinking here later in life about McDonald's. And the fact that the fish sandwich gets smaller and smaller and smaller. But the price keeps going up. Well, McDonald's isn't in business to give anything away. You know that. Ray Kroc at one of the meetings he had for his people, the founder of McDonald's, that grew it the way it grew. He asked his people what they knew, what the business of McDonald's was. And they had all kinds of answers. And when they got done, he said, well, you're all partially right. He says, but our real business, he says, we own the most prime real estate in the world. He said, we're a real estate company. And that blew everybody away. But they got to support that. They got to feed the animal. So they feed the animal by feeding the animal hamburgers. All of this takes us in a loop and brings us back to the McRib. And the McRib is another reconstituted meat of some kind or another. And like my friend who designs ice cream, McDonald's designs their food to have the maximum amount of appeal. And they don't care about you. They don't care about me. They care about the buck. If they could sell us ice cream that was made out of shit with enough sugar on it, they would do it because they don't care. And so the message to my niece, and I'm making it a public message, is, you've never tasted a McRib? Good. Don't. You don't need one. All kinds of wholesome, good foods. And about McDonald's, I was really pissed off when my wife brought me that sandwich from McDonald's. And it was right across the road from the Phoenix VA hospital. She brought it to me from there to me. I immediately, I'd been eating hospital food, I immediately opened that thing up and squished it so oh god, it's not a sauce, what they put on it. Anyway, so the white stuff on it would spread out, because they just put it on and a plop, just plop. And none of it came out. I thought, that's strange. And then I took my first bite, and it crunched, the bread crunched, it was so damn dry. Oh my word. And so I ripped it open. The cheese was smaller than I remember it being the last time I looked at it when it was smaller. When it first came, when they first made the sandwich, cheese was a square that big. Now, it was about that big and about that long. It got shortened in length and shortened and shortened, and it became thinner and thinner and thinner. And the cheese was about that thin, and it was about that long. So it's probably, I'm just guessing, but 60% of what it used to be when you first buy one of those fish sandwiches. And of course it didn't taste good. I think they'd thrown a quickie on the plate. But anyway, so much for my McDonald's experience. I shared it with Karen, and I talked to a couple of nurses about it, and they didn't have any comments one way or the other. I probably wasn't supposed to be eating that. So it's like selling shit to Eskimos. If you put enough sugar on it, I'm sure you could do it. Call it ice cream. And so for the message for my niece, and I have one for her through this video, is there's a whole lot of other foods you can buy and not run the risk of reconstituted meat. So good luck to you, and hope it goes well. And for those of you who have followed this, thank you for stepping into the middle of it. Some of you make comments. I'd love to hear your stories about McDonald's or any of the other fast food places. The family here likes the Panda Express. I've eaten at the Panda Express. I don't react very well to grease. And so far, every experience I've had at the Panda Express has been grease that is designed to taste good with something else with it that looked like vegetables and looked like meat. But so much for now. I would keep rambling all morning. You guys take care. Have a great week.